Today, I'd like to share a snapshot of our journey during the past year with some of our achievements. 2020 was actually a great year for the town of Waxhaw, in spite of setbacks like floods, drinking water issues, rallies, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Because of the varied levels of experience and perspectives that this team brings to the entire organization, the town has managed to successfully move forward on several collaborative initiatives. One of the first initiatives was to conduct an unbiased evaluation of the town's capacity to move forward. A top to bottom review of each of our personnel, their capabilities, experience, and needs. This allows some of the stresses on the organization to be identified, redirected, and thus pave the way to the building of a high-performing, action-oriented team that could effectively move the town into the future. A second initiative was to hire a full-time permanent town manager. Without an experienced full-time leader in this position, we would lack the capability to achieve any stated goal. A third initiative was to hire a new finance director, someone experienced in municipal finance who could provide the oversight necessary to manage the myriad of daily financial activities. A fourth initiative was to revisit the town's vision, land use ordinances, and growth strategies to better shape solid, reasonable, and sensible guidelines. This would help us create better traffic patterns while also including more aesthetic requirements to support the character of each specific area of our town. And a fifth initiative was to reestablish relationships with some of our regional partners: Union County, NCDOT, Union County Economic Development Corporation, and the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, affectionately known as CRTPO, to name a few. CRTPO is the funding liaison for infrastructure improvements between NCDOT and some of the Charlotte region's governmental bodies. In January of 2020, the town leadership reviewed the financial and contractual obligations of the town for the period of the second half of that fiscal year. During that time, it was decided not to move forward with a proposed agreement relative to town-owned properties in the downtown area due to highly unfavorable terms with conditions that were not as favorable for the town of Waxhaw, which would have resulted in the loss of almost $2 million in town asset over a four-year period. Additionally, in January of 2020, Prescott Village, after more than 10 years of sitting with no activity, was given a new lease on life as a result of discussions with its ownership. Those discussions resulted in the owner's additional investment in the property, which included the completion of a signalized intersection, sidewalk, and pavement improvements. You may all have noticed the recent construction activity at that site now, which includes a previously approved auto wash, gas station, 2 restaurants, and a pet care center. The net effect of this effort will not only result in additional sales and property tax revenues, but also improves our tax-based residential to non-residential ratios, which, by the way, has moved from 93.7 a year ago to 89.11 as of this last week. In February of 2020, the leadership team hired a new finance director, Rosemary Bernauer, and completed its first annual retreat, successfully setting the course for the coming year by prioritizing its needs and concerns financially, administratively, and strategically. This will take the town forward into the next 20 years. In March, after reviewing more than 70 applicants for the position of town manager, we successfully hired a new town manager. Jeff Wells, the former director of planning for the town, was unanimously selected by the Board of Commissioners for this position. Since March, we have successfully navigated the COVID-19 communication waters with the help of our experienced and technically creative IT team. This team has allowed the town to keep on serving its customers, team members, and Board of Commissioners with the ability to remotely operate the town with little or no interruption, in addition to coordinating the efforts to broadcast our first ever virtual board meeting. That team effort continues today to support all of us. Late spring brought us into what is affectionately known as the budget season. which was traditionally a long, drawn-out, and arduous process for the town in the months leading up to the budget deadline in June. In 2020, those efforts were different. After just a few short weeks of collaborative exchanges between the town manager, the department leadership, and the staff, the Board of Commissioners was presented with an operational budget for their preliminary review. That process resulted in the Board of Commissioners approving an almost $2 million reduction in spending for that fiscal year, thus setting up the Town of Waxhaw to be in a stronger financial position for the year 2021. In July, after several months of discovery and negotiations, the Town of Waxhaw and the YMCA came to an amicable agreement to terminate their original agreement due to significant financial concerns by both parties. As unfortunate as this might have been to all concerned, the termination effectively released the town of an uncommitted debt obligation of more than $10 million, thus allowing the town to refocus on some much needed financial and project goals. During the summer of 2020, the town also purchased a 17.4 acre site from Union County at the intersection of Waxhaw Marvin and Kensington Road for the purpose of relocating our public services and our park and recreation operations, in addition to providing the ability to have some future town use at that property. The summer of 2020 also saw a commitment by the Board of Commissioners to fund and design the first phase construction of a long-awaited downtown area park, which we referred to a little bit earlier. The park project received its near final design approval from the board and will be designated in construction, or designed in construction, in phases with initial clearing operations to start this fall. In October, the town successfully closed a sale of the property known as the Nivens Price Building that I had mentioned earlier, a non-performing asset that the town purchased some 8+ years earlier. That sale generated $1.23 million in an all-cash transaction, which the town manager and his team, which included our town attorney, Charlie Buckley, they were able to close that deal in 30 days. The town retained the parking lot directly behind that property, as well as a property on the corner, affectionately known as the community corner. On January 28th and 29th of this year, we completed the Town of Waxhaw's annual retreat. This was the second retreat since I have been in office, and proudly the best one yet. Prior to this administration, annual retreats were led by a facilitator, primarily focused on vision planning and team building exercises. While they may have been originally structured to build relationships between the town leadership and staff, the consensus by the staff is that those efforts did not set achievable and realistic goals, causing frustration at all levels of the organization. Today's staff consensus, I'm happy to report, reveals a much more positive, energized, and unified team with the assurance and guidance and direction from the Board of Commissioners and the town manager. This year's retreat was facilitated by the town manager and his staff to give and get direction on several initiatives, directives, and goals for the upcoming year. The retreat produced a great deal of discussion, collaboration, and consensus on several topics. Some of these, which include the pre-design of the public services and park and rec facility on the newly acquired Waxhaw Marvin property, location for the new town hall and its pre-design, funding models and strategies for financing and cash funding of town projects. Part of that is going to be the first phase of the downtown park. Board commitment to the base required to fund the funding model based on the tax base. Development of a 5-year master plan for capital improvements. Development of financial policies as recommended by Davenport, our financial consultant. By the way, in the first time in its 132-year history, the town of Waxhaw is at the jumping off point to having a rating by S&P and Moody. That is a first. We also looked at some organizational structures and changes. We looked at the federal grant action plan, historic landmark facade improvement plan, and funding approval for the design and construction, again, of phase 1 of the downtown park. It was a very successful retreat with many accolades shared and expressed by staff, town leadership, and the Board of Commissioners. I would encourage you all to watch the videos of the retreat. Recently, the Board of Commissioners sought to fulfill an earlier initiative of getting more of the town's citizens involved in the voting process by exploring and amending the election cycle to even year elections. This would additionally produce a cost savings benefit to the town. Waxhaw, like many other municipalities, has traditionally experienced dismal voter turnout in off-cycle years. Current statistics for Waxhaw continue to support that voter participation nearly quintuples in even-year elections versus odd-year elections. To facilitate this goal, the Board of Commissioners, in concert with the town staff, went to work on researching how other municipalities move to bring more voters to the polls. Research was done in part by looking at several municipalities who have already converted to the even year cycle, by information and guidance from the University of North Carolina School of Government, by discussions with Union County Office of Board of Elections, and with conversations with some of our elected officials at the legislative levels. From this research, and according to our state legislators, we learned that several municipalities have already enacted this type of change, and several more are now considering changing. Most everything in government involves a process, and this is no different. The prescribed legal process is for the municipality's elected officials to bring forward a resolution to ask our state legislators to consider our request and give guidance on how to move forward. This request, or any request to amend the charter of the Town of Waxhaw, are solely granted by NC State Legislature under the authority of the general statutes of the state of North Carolina. The Town of Waxhaw has employed this process in previous years to amend its charter. Once in 1979, to increase the number of commissioners from 3 to 5, and to extend the terms of office for the mayor and the commissioners from 2 years to 4 years. And again in 2005, to change the form of government to council manager, which we exist under today. At our last Board of Commissioners meeting, the commissioners voted 4-1 in favor of moving forward with this effort by approving a resolution to submit to the state legislators for their guidance and consideration. There are those out there that choose to spread misinformation to our residents in the press, in social media, and in uninformed conversations to confuse or divert from the actual facts. There will be those who will object, and there will be those who will support. It's the first step in a prescribed legal process. The intention is, and always has been, to do what's best for the Town of Waxhaw going forward. On Sunday, many of you witnessed a Super Bowl victory that demonstrated what good team building, organization, planning, and strategic initiatives can do to achieve success. Waxhaw's future, like many sports franchises, will be the result of rebuilding and strengthening its team, identifying desired long-term actionable goals and strategies, and coupling those goals by shaping short-term initiatives. During the election cycle of 2019, my personal promise to those who wanted to change the status quo was, if elected, I would bring my many years of experience as a real estate developer and home building executive to serve in the best interests of the Town of Waxhaw. Under my guidance and working collaboratively with the town's leadership, several course corrections and actionable initiatives have occurred, including building and strengthening the town's partnerships with regional and state organizations. The Town of Waxhaw will continue to grow as a high-performing team by identifying future goals, researching the strategy methods, and execute the necessary and prescribed action steps to achieve the defined goal. This is the way forward for the long-term success and the future of the Town of Waxhaw. Thank you for that time.